The silver palace of Aurion shimmered beneath 3 suns, its towers spearing the lavender skies like frozen lightning. Each beam of light that struck its glassy surface turned to rivers of gold flowing across the horizon. Inside those radiant walls walked Princess Elara, the jewel of Aurion, daughter of Queen Seraphine, and the most admired being in the solar dominion. She was beautiful, intelligent, and feared for her sharp tongue. Elara's curiosity about other worlds often came dressed in mockery. Her favorite subject, humans, every week. She summoned her courtiers to the observatory chamber, where vast holograms displayed transmissions intercepted from Earth. News, music, dramas, even emotional farewells. Elara watched them all, not with awe, but with laughter. They cry so easily, she would say, her lips curling in playful disgust. They let their hearts rule their logic. No wonder their world is still bound by soil and sorrow. Her laughter rang through the marble hall, high and bright like glass breaking in the wind. Her friends laughed too, eager to please their princess. They mimicked Earth's greetings, exaggerated their handshakes, and recited sentimental words of love and hope, each one twisting them into comedy. Elara enjoyed the attention. To her, emotion was weakness, and humanity was a mirror of everything she was taught to suppress. Yet among the audience, Queen Seraphine sat in silence, her silver eyes watching from the high throne. Her beauty was timeless, her calm unshakable. But beneath that serenity lingered something fragile, a pain that never faded. When Elara performed that day, she selected a human transmission newly retrieved from Earth, a soldier's final message to his family before battle. The recording flickered above the court. A young man, weary yet brave, looked into the lens with a trembling smile. "If I don't make it back," he said, voice cracking, "tell my daughter I love her. Tell her she is my light." Elara paused, studying his face. Then, with a smirk, she repeated his words in exaggerated drama. "Tell her she's my light," she said, pressing her hand to her heart. The court roared with laughter, but the queen did not. "Enough," Seraphine said. The single word cut through the laughter like thunder shattering glass. The echo lingered, heavy and absolute. Elara turned, startled. "Mother!" "Enough, Elara." The queen's voice was quiet but trembling. "You mock what you do not understand." The courtiers fell to their knees, terrified of the queen's tone. Elara stood frozen, the amusement draining from her face. "Mother, it was only a jest," she said softly. Seraphine rose from her throne. Her cloak of white and gold swept the floor like a river of light. "A jest?" she repeated. "Do you know who that man was whom you mock so freely?" Elara frowned. "A human soldier. Nothing more." The queen's eyes filled with sorrow. "No, Elara, that man—" "You carry his eyes." Silence crushed the room. Gasps escaped from the courtiers, their faces pale with shock. Elara blinked, unable to breathe. "What?" she whispered. Seraphine turned away, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of her throne. "Come to me," she said quietly, her voice breaking, "when you wish to know who you are." She left the chamber, leaving Elara standing alone beneath the fading hologram of the soldier's face. His eyes, warm, steady, deeply human, seemed to follow her as the image dimmed. The courtiers avoided her gaze. Bowing and retreating in silence, Elara remained still, the queen's words echoing inside her skull. "You carry his eyes." Her laughter, once effortless, now felt hollow. Her chest tightened with a strange ache she could not name. She walked toward the tall window, the 3 suns descending into a crimson sea. Outside, the wind howled softly through the silver spires. The planet glowed majestic and cold, but in her reflection she saw something foreign, a spark of the same emotion she had once mocked. Fear, sadness, wonder. "Who was he?" she whispered to the empty hall. No answer came. Only the echo of her mother's trembling voice drifted through her thoughts, carrying a promise and a warning both. That night, as Aurion's stars burned across the endless void, Princess Elara felt the first crack in her perfect world. And deep within her heart, where pride once ruled, something human had begun to awaken. Sleep would not come to Princess Elara that night. The queen's words, "You carry his eyes," echoed in her mind like a pulse that would not fade. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the soldier's trembling smile, heard the raw honesty in his voice and felt the strange, painful warmth behind those words of love. She sat by the window of her chamber, staring out at the glowing planet below. Aurion's 3 moons painted her room in silver light. The wind whispered through the crystal lattice of her balcony, soft and cold. For the first time in her life, Elara felt small. Who was he? Why would Mother say such a thing? By dawn, she could bear it no longer. Dressed in a plain gray cloak to hide her royal sigils, she slipped from her quarters and walked through the shadowed halls. The palace slept, except for the hum of energy fields and the faint music of starlight refracting off glass. Elara made her way to the archives of Aurion, the oldest chamber in the kingdom, where every event, treaty, and name in royal history was preserved. Its guardian, a weary archivist named Master Tovan, looked up as the door hissed open. "Your Highness," he stammered, nearly dropping his crystal stylus. "I'm not here as a princess," Elara said softly. "I need truth," the old man bowed. "Then truth you shall have if it is written." She walked among towering holographic shelves, each glowing with thousands of years of data. The archives responded to her touch, blooming with records of diplomacy, wars, and peace treaties. But what caught her eye was a section marked Pre-Unification Era, Restricted. With trembling fingers, she pressed her hand to the access panel. The system chimed, scanning her royal DNA. Authorization: Princess Elara Seraphine of House Aurion, the machine confirmed. Restricted files accessible. A single file shimmered before her, labeled simply, Seraphine, Earth Mission. Her heart pounded as she opened it. The hologram flickered alive, casting the chamber in pale blue light. She saw her mother, young, radiant, dressed not in royal robes but in a diplomat's uniform. Her hair was shorter, her smile unguarded, and beside her stood a human man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of deep oceans. His features were kind but strong, his smile open, his presence steady. The tag below the image read, Captain Elias Wren, Earth Defense Forces. Elara leaned closer. Her throat tightened. The video played, Elias laughing as he handed Seraphine a crystalline rose glowing faintly in his hand. "To remind you," he said, his accent gentle, "that even in war, beauty still grows." Seraphine laughed softly in return. Her eyes sparkled not with diplomacy but affection. It wasn't the gaze of a negotiator. It was the gaze of a woman in love. Elara's chest constricted. She watched the two speak about peace, about rebuilding after conflict, about hope between their worlds. But when the recording ended abruptly, leaving only static, Elara realized her hands were trembling. "Captain Elias Wren," she whispered, testing the name on her lips. Master Tovan spoke quietly behind her. "He was a remarkable man, Princess. One of the few humans who believed in unity, even when both sides thirsted for war." She turned to him sharply. "You knew him?" "I knew of him," Tovan corrected gently. "He saved an Aurion envoy during the Terran siege. Without him, your mother would have perished." Elara's heartbeat roared in her ears. "My mother?" Tovan nodded, his gaze soft with understanding. "The Queen owed her life to a human. But after she returned, she never spoke of him again." The princess felt dizzy. The air around her seemed thinner, colder. She stared again at the frozen image of Elias and Seraphine standing side by side, so different, yet so close. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Why would she hide this from me?" "Perhaps," Tovan said gently, "because some truths can destroy before they heal." Elara touched the hologram, her fingertips brushing through the man's smiling face. Her reflection merged with his for a moment, and she froze. Those eyes, the same calm blue-gray as hers, the same light she saw in her mirror every morning. The realization struck like lightning. The soldier she mocked, the species she ridiculed, the world she dismissed as weak. One of them had once stood beside her mother. One of them had loved her, and if the Queen's trembling voice spoke truth, then one of them had fathered her. The hologram flickered out, leaving her alone in the darkened archive. Elara sank to her knees, her hands pressed against her heart. The silence felt alive, filled with ghosts of a man she had never met, but whose blood ran in her veins. When the first sun rose, its light spilling through the archive windows, she stood again, no longer laughing, no longer sure of who she was. In the reflection of the glowing data screen, she whispered the name that would now haunt her soul. Elias Wren, and somewhere across the stars that name seemed to echo back like a memory returning home. The throne room of Aurion had never felt so vast. Its ceiling shimmered with 1,000 constellations, but Princess Elara could see only shadows. Her mind spun with the name she had uncovered, Captain Elias Wren, and the image of her mother standing beside him, eyes filled with warmth that Elara had never seen directed at anyone else. She stood before the great doors, her heart pounding like a drum of war. For hours she hesitated, unsure whether she wanted truth or comfort, yet the silence of the palace pressed against her, until she could no longer endure it. With trembling hands she pushed open the doors. Queen Seraphine sat on her throne, bathed in the soft glow of morning suns. She looked weary, as though the years had finally found her. Elara approached slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "Mother, tell me who he was." The queen's head lifted. For a long moment she said nothing. Then with a gesture she dismissed the guards and attendants until the chamber stood empty. The great doors sealed with a sigh. "Where did you hear that name?" Seraphine asked. "I found your records," Elara said, her voice shaking. "The Earth mission. The man named Elias Wren. You said I carry his eyes." The queen's fingers tightened on the armrest of her throne. "You should not have searched for him. You left me no choice." Elara's words broke like glass. "All my life I've mocked humans. I believed them small, emotional, weak. But now I see him in my reflection. You owe me the truth." For the first time in years, Seraphine looked uncertain. Slowly, she rose from her throne and descended the marble steps. Her robe of white and gold swept the floor like a sigh. She stopped before Elara, her expression neither regal nor distant, only human. "Then you shall have it," the queen said quietly. "But understand, my child, truth changes everything." She took Elara's hand and led her toward the balcony overlooking the shining city. 3 suns glowed over the spires, their light soft as silk. "His name was Elias Wren," Seraphine began. "He was a captain in the Earth Defense Forces, a man of extraordinary courage. I met him when our worlds were at war." Elara's breath hitched. "During the Terran siege?" "Yes. My diplomatic vessel was struck down near the lunar colonies. The council declared me lost, but Elias found me. He could have left me to die, but he didn't. He carried me to safety, treated my wounds, and hid me from his own command until I could heal." Seraphine smiled faintly, lost in memory. "We lived in silence for weeks in a broken shelter beneath a crater's edge. We spoke of peace, of stars, of what it means to be alive. I had never known such gentleness. He saw through rank, through species. To him I was not a queen, I was just Seraphine." Her voice faltered. Elara's eyes shimmered, caught between disbelief and longing. "Then he loved you," Elara whispered. The queen nodded. "And I loved him. But love between our worlds was forbidden. When the war ended, I was recalled to Aurion. The council threatened to strip my crown if I did not sever all ties. He wanted to come with me, but he was human, bound to gravity and breath. Our world would have killed him." Elara swallowed hard. "And you never told him." "About me?" Seraphine's eyes closed. "I learned I was with child only after my return. The council forbade me to speak of him. They feared scandal, rebellion, contamination of royal blood. I swore to silence. To protect you." Elara stepped back, tears breaking free. "Protect me from what?" "From the truth that my father was good, that he was brave, that he was human." The queen's voice broke. "From hatred, Elara. You would have been shunned, treated as less than either world. I chose to bear that silence so you could live free of shame." Elara shook her head, heart twisting. "Free? I mocked the very people who gave me life. I laughed at their pain while half my soul belonged to them." The queen reached for her, but Elara turned away, trembling. The truth burned too bright to face. "I should have told you," Seraphine whispered. "But I feared the day you'd hate me for it." Elara's voice trembled like a broken cord. "I don't hate you, Mother. I hate myself." Seraphine placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, my daughter. You carry both worlds within you. His fire, my light. Together they make you more than either of us." Elara finally looked at her mother, tears shining like stars. "Then tell me one thing," she whispered. "Is he still alive?" The queen hesitated. Too long. "I don't know," she said at last. "The records say he fell during the siege of Luna, but no remains were ever found." Elara's breath caught. "Then maybe—" "Yes," Seraphine said softly. "Maybe. The two stood in silence, the suns rising higher, the city blazing with color below them. Between them hung the weight of love, war, and everything unspoken. And in that silence, for the first time, Elara's heart began to ache, not with pride, but with purpose. The following days passed like a blur through crystal and silence. Princess Elara stayed hidden from the court, from the laughter of the halls, and from the weight of her own reflection. The truth had cracked something inside her, a fracture that no crown could mend. She wandered the palace gardens, the same paths her mother once walked with Captain Elias Wren, and every blossom, every scent of rain, felt heavy with ghosts. The stars above Aurion no longer looked beautiful. They looked distant, untouchable, mocking. Each night she found herself whispering his name to the sky, unsure if she was speaking to memory or to blood. Father, were you real? On the fourth night, she went to the balcony overlooking the royal gardens. Below, the luminous flowers swayed under the soft hum of wind currents. The moonlight carved gentle shadows on her face as she whispered again, Elias Wren. The name no longer felt foreign. It felt like a heartbeat returning home. But peace would not come. Questions gnawed at her. If he truly had been a man of honor, why had she never known of him? Did he die believing she did not exist? The thought was unbearable. She clenched her fists and swore under her breath, I will find the truth even if it means defying the throne. At dawn, she dressed in the robes of a scholar and concealed her crest beneath a veil of silver mesh. With a forged clearance sigil, she slipped into the Royal Academy's archives, a forbidden act for anyone of royal blood. The scent of aged data crystals filled the air as she approached an old historian bent over a glowing terminal. Master Toven, she said quietly. He looked up, startled. Princess Elara, you should not be here. Then pretend you never saw me, she said, her voice low but firm. I need everything you know about Earth. And about Captain Elias Wren. The old man hesitated, then sighed. So the Queen finally told you. She told me part, Elara said bitterly. Not enough, Toven gestured for her to sit. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the holographic display. Captain Wren was no ordinary human. During the siege of Luna, when the Aurion fleet turned against Earth, he refused to retreat. He stayed behind to protect the colony until the last evacuation ship escaped. They say he sacrificed himself, blew up his own vessel to stop our forces from destroying the human base. Elara's eyes widened. He died to protect his people? The old historian nodded. And perhaps more than that. Some of our scouts claim to have seen his ship escape into the shadow of Earth's moon before it vanished. No wreckage was found. Elara felt her heart twist painfully. So he might still be alive. Or lost among the stars, Toven said gently. Sometimes those are the same thing. She looked down at her hands, shaking. He doesn't even know I exist, Toven's voice softened. Perhaps not. But if he was half the man your mother described, then you live as proof of him. That is no small thing. Elara rose, her resolve forming like steel. Thank you, Master Toven. But I will not live as proof of him. I will find him. Princess, the old man warned. The Queen will never allow it. The Council still fears what your lineage means. If they discover you plan to travel to Earth, I am not asking their permission, Elara interrupted. I have spent my life mocking a world that gave me half my soul. I owe that world my truth. The historian bowed his head. Then may the stars protect you. That night, Elara stood once more on her balcony, her cloak fluttering in the cosmic breeze. She looked toward the distant shimmer of Earth, a pale blue gem nestled among stars. Father, she whispered, if you're out there, I'll find you. I'll find the part of me I never knew. Her mother's words returned to her, soft as a ghost. You have his fire, Elara. Yes, she murmured. And now I'll use it. The suns rose together the next morning, their light spilling across the palace like liquid gold. By the time the Queen's attendants came to check her chambers, the room was empty. Only a single message remained on her table, engraved on a crystal shard. Mother, I must see the world he loved. I must know what it means to be human. And far above Aurion, a single scout ship ignited its engines and vanished into the void, its course set for Earth. For the first time in her life, Princess Elara was no longer running from her truth. She was chasing it. The stars unfolded before Princess Elara like a living map of destiny. Her stolen scout ship glided through the void, silent except for the rhythmic hum of its engines and the pulse of her own heartbeat echoing in her chest. Beyond the viewing glass stretched infinity, cold, beautiful, and terrifying. She had left everything behind, her crown, her mother's protection, and the only world she had ever known. Yet for the first time she felt alive. Earth shimmered in the distance, a blue world wrapped in white clouds and green veins of life. It was smaller than she'd imagined, humbler than Aurion's gleaming spires, but somehow warmer. There was something about its light, its fragile beauty, that tugged at her heart like memory. As her ship entered orbit, alarms blared. Unregistered vessel detected. She winced. So this is how humans welcome visitors, she muttered. Quickly she engaged her translator, masked her energy signature, and descended through the atmosphere. The hull rattled as fire kissed its edges, but Elara kept her gaze steady. She was not her mother's cautious diplomat. She was her father's daughter, reckless, daring, and unyielding. The landing was rough. She crashed into a quiet forest near a small coastal city, smoke curling from the hull. Dressed in a simple cloak, she stepped out, boots sinking into soft, living soil. The air was thick with scents she had never known: salt, pine, rain. It hit her all at once, overwhelming and pure. She fell to her knees, pressing her hand against the earth. So this is home, she whispered. For days she walked through villages and cities, observing humans up close for the first time. They were not weak. They were alive in ways no Aurion ever seemed to be, laughing, arguing, building, dreaming. She watched a child offer half a sandwich to a stray dog, and an old man plant flowers where a building had burned down. It struck her deeply. This is the strength I mocked, the power to hope even when broken. But her mission was not wonder. It was truth. She needed to find Elias Wren. Every record she found said he was dead, yet rumors persisted. Stories whispered in veterans' bars and among old soldiers. Some said he'd survived the siege of Luna, that he'd vanished into the wilderness, refusing medals and fame. Others claimed he was a ghost haunting the stars. One night, while resting at an old spaceport, she overheard two elderly mechanics talking. "Elias Wren? You mean that fool who tried to stop the war?" one said, chuckling. "Not a fool," the other replied. "A hero. I heard he lived. Taught kids out near the northern coast. Said he was done fighting." Elara's pulse quickened. The northern coast, that was only a few hundred miles away. She stood, her heart thundering. "Where?" she asked them. "Please, where exactly?" They glanced at her, puzzled. "You one of his students? I'm—" "Something more," she said softly. The next morning she began her journey north. The farther she traveled, the more human she became, covered in dust, wind-tangled hair, exhaustion in her bones. Yet with every step she felt closer to something she could not yet name. On the 7th day, a storm rolled over the coast. Rain fell in silver sheets, soaking through her cloak. Through the mist, she saw a small house perched on a cliff above the sea. A light burned in the window. Something, instinct, blood, pulled her forward. She climbed the narrow path, her boots slipping on the wet stones, until she stood before the door. She hesitated, heart pounding, then raised her hand and knocked. No answer, only the crash of waves below. She tried again. The door creaked open slightly under her touch. Inside, the air smelled of sea salt and metal. On the table lay a half-repaired communicator and a faded photograph. Her mother's face beside a young soldier with familiar blue-gray eyes. Elara gasped. "Father." She turned toward the sound of footsteps behind her. An old woman stood in the doorway clutching a lantern. Her eyes were kind, lined by time. "You look just like him," she whispered. Elara's voice trembled. "You knew Elias Wren?" The woman nodded slowly. "He saved my family during the war. Said he'd lost everything except a promise he couldn't keep." She reached for a drawer and pulled out a small metal locket. "He left this behind. Said if a girl with silver eyes ever came looking, it belonged to her." Elara opened the locket with trembling fingers. Inside flickered a hologram. Elias Wren, smiling softly, holding a newborn child wrapped in blue cloth. "Tell her she'll be safe among the stars," his voice echoed faintly. Tears streamed down her face. "That child was me." The woman nodded, tears glistening. "He knew you'd find him one day." Elara clutched the locket to her chest, her voice breaking into a whisper. Then I'll keep my promise. 2. Outside, the storm raged, but within her heart, a new light had begun to burn, one born not of shame, but of love. And for the first time in her life, the alien princess understood what it meant to belong. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the air washed clean and quiet. The sea stretched endlessly beneath a sky painted in gold and violet, the horizon glowing with a new day's promise. Princess Elara stood at the cliff's edge, clutching the locket that carried her father's image. The hologram shimmered faintly in her palm, his voice repeating that final promise. She'll be safe among the stars. Those words haunted her. What had he meant? Safe from what, from whom? Behind her, the old woman stepped out of the cottage, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "You're not the first to come here looking for him," she said softly. "Soldiers, scientists, even politicians. But you're the only one he ever left something for." Elara turned to face her, eyes bright with emotion. "Where did he go?" The woman sighed. "North, to the mountains. Said there was a place he needed to see one last time. No one ever came back from there." Elara looked down at the locket again, determination rising in her chest. "Then I will." She left before sunrise. Her path wound through forests and over cold, endless ridges. As she climbed higher, she began to understand her father's world. The bite of the wind, the ache of hunger, the stubborn endurance that lived in every human heartbeat. Her elegant robes were torn and stained, her hands raw from the climb, yet she pressed on. Each night she would gaze up at the stars, whispering to them, "If you're out there, Father, I'm coming." On the 4th day she reached the summit. There, nestled among the rocks, stood a small metal dome half buried in snow. Its walls were scarred by time and weather. Above the door was an inscription, faint but legible. Project Helios. Elara's pulse quickened. She pressed the access panel. It flickered, then hissed open. Inside, everything smelled of dust and metal. The chamber glowed faintly blue from old power cells still struggling to live. On the far wall, a console blinked to life. Its screen displayed a message waiting to be played. Her hand trembled as she touched the panel. A projection shimmered into being. A man, older now, hair streaked with gray, face marked by time but unmistakable. "Elias Wren, my daughter," his voice began, warm and weary. "If you're seeing this, it means Seraphine kept her word." Elara's breath caught. "Father, I wanted to tell you myself, but our worlds were never ready for truth. Aurion and Earth were enemies then, and your birth, our love, would have destroyed everything. So your mother hid you among the stars. She saved you from the hatred that nearly consumed us all." He paused, eyes glistening with memory. "I taunted the Empire once. I fought to prove humanity's worth, to show them that emotion wasn't weakness, that love could be strength. Your mother believed the same. We dreamed of peace, but the universe laughed at us. Still, you were proof it could exist." Elara fell to her knees. Her tears struck the cold metal floor. Elias continued, his tone softening. "If you've come this far, you've already learned what neither side ever understood. Heart and honor are not bound by blood or species. They are the same light burning in us all. Remember that, my child. Carry it back to the stars. Show them what we could not." The message flickered, fading. "And Elara, tell your mother I kept my promise." Then he was gone. Elara knelt in silence, the hum of the old machine filling the void where his voice had been. Slowly she rose, her heart heavy yet alive with something fierce and luminous. As she stepped outside, the sun was rising over the mountains. The clouds parted and the sky ignited with morning light. For a moment, it seemed as if the heavens themselves bowed to greet her. She opened her communicator and looked up at the stars. "Mother," she whispered. "I know now. I understand." Above her, orbiting silently, the Aurion royal cruiser waited, her mother's ship. A transmission flickered through the clouds, the Queen's voice trembling with emotion. "Then come home, my daughter. The truth must finally be spoken." Elara closed her eyes, feeling her father's spirit in the wind, her mother's voice in the stars. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from either world. She was walking toward both. The sky shimmered with light, as though the universe itself approved. The princess had found her truth. The grand halls of Aurion's celestial palace had never been so silent. The great chandeliers of starlight burned brighter than ever, as if sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. Every noble, every scholar, every warrior of the empire had gathered to witness the return of their lost princess. the girl who had once mocked the small blue planet now standing as its defender. Elara walked between the marble pillars, her cloak marked by rain and dust from Earth. Her golden hair, once braided in pride, now fell freely over her shoulders. Each step echoed with purpose, soft, steady, and unshaken. The same courtiers who once laughed at her jests now bowed in uneasy reverence. Whispers rippled like wind through glass. Is it true? She went to the human world. They say she carries their blood. But Elara didn't flinch. Her gaze was fixed upon the throne, where her mother, Queen Seraphine, awaited, regal yet weary, her silver eyes heavy with the weight of decades of silence. "Daughter," the queen spoke at last, her voice soft, trembling slightly. "You have returned." Elara knelt, but her voice was clear. "I went to find the truth you could not say." A murmur spread through the chamber. The queen rose slowly, her robe flowing like liquid moonlight. She descended the steps of the throne, her face serene yet shadowed by sorrow. "You were never meant to bear this secret," Seraphine said gently. "But perhaps it is time the stars themselves learned what love costs." She turned toward the gathered court. Her voice rose, calm but firm, carrying through every corner of the hall. "Years ago, during the war between Aurion and Earth, I met a man named Elias Wren. He was our prisoner, a soldier who refused to bow even in defeat. When others saw an enemy, I saw something else, a fire that would not die. He spoke of compassion, of the strength born from pain. And in that light I found what no empire could teach, the meaning of humanity." Gasps filled the air. Some nobles stepped back as if struck. Others stared in disbelief. "I loved him," Seraphine continued. "And from that love came our daughter, Elara of Aurion, child of two worlds." The court erupted in outrage and astonishment. Voices clashed like storms. "A hybrid? Impossible! Blasphemy! She carries human blood." But Elara stood tall, her voice rising above the noise. "Yes, I do. And that blood saved me." The hall fell silent again. Every eye turned toward her. "When I went to Earth, I saw what you mock," she said, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I saw people who build with broken hands, who hope when hope is foolish, who fight not for power but for love. You call them weak, but I saw strength there that our empire has forgotten. My father taught me that courage is not born in perfection. It is born in the struggle to rise again and again." Her eyes swept the room, burning with conviction. "You taught me that emotion is weakness. But tell me, what is strength without heart? What is wisdom without mercy?" A silence like gravity filled the chamber. The courtiers looked to one another, uncertain. Even the harshest among them found no words. Queen Seraphine watched her daughter with tears in her eyes. Slowly she raised her hand. "The truth cannot be hidden any longer. The line of Aurion will no longer stand above others, it will stand with them. Let this be the day our arrogance ends." Then, turning toward Elara, she whispered so softly that only her daughter could hear, "He would have been proud of you." Elara's lips trembled. "I heard his message, Mother. He never stopped believing in us, either of us." The queen took her daughter's hand and lifted it high. The hall filled with refracted starlight, cascading through crystal walls, bathing them both in brilliance. "Behold," Seraphine declared, her voice echoing through the palace, "the bridge between worlds, my daughter. Elara Wren of Aurion and Earth." The nobles bowed, one by one, in a not out of obedience but awe. Some wept openly. For the first time in living memory, two civilizations separated by centuries of pride shared the same light. Elara looked up toward the sky beyond the glass ceiling. The stars shimmered faintly, and for a moment she swore she saw her father's reflection smiling down upon her. Proud, eternal, free. A single tear traced her cheek, warm and alive. "I will make them remember," she whispered. "Both worlds, both hearts." And as the twin moons of Aurion rose above the horizon, their light united in a single beam that shone upon the throne, the symbol of two destinies finally reconciled. The laughter that once mocked humanity had become a vow to honor it. The princess who once ridiculed Earth had now become its voice among the stars. The bridge was built not of metal or power, but of truth, love, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity.